Conversations that you can share. They have impact. Arrow.net. It's what we do. ARROE.net. All right, let's do it. Let's play it forward. Real people, real stories, the struggle to play it forward. Episode number 420 is with Yance Ford and Dr. Hetty Cunningham from The Color of Care on Smithsonian.
Hello, Arrow.
Hello, Arrow.
Hello and good morning, you two. First of all, before we even get started, I want to thank you for the encouragement that you're going to give viewers when they watch this. And not only that, but the lessons in life that we all need to carry forward. And it starts with you guys. You are the original seeds of this incredible journey.
Thank you.
To be in that moment, you had to have the courage and you had to have the confidence to be able to step out there and put all of this together. I mean, the collaboration between the two of you.
Yeah, Arrow, I have to say that the collaboration actually began when Oprah Winfrey read an article in USA Today about Gary Fowler and his family, and how he sought treatment at 3 different hospitals in Detroit and was sent home by each of those hospitals, only to die very soon after of COVID-19. Ms. Winfrey was interested in finding out how communities of color were impacted by health disparities and how those health disparities were being magnified by COVID-19. Dr. Cunningham is a leader in her field in trying to educate medical students about healthcare disparities. And so it was, for me, it was, sort of a no-brainer to ask her to participate in the film. And I think that as a result of her participation and the participation of the families who tell their personal stories, the film that people will see on Sunday night at 8 o'clock will be one that both touches their hearts and their minds.
Dr. Hetty, this is all about reaching beyond what we think we know, isn't it? I mean, we've got to be able to step out there onto the streets of reality and start teaching as well as receiving.
Yes, it is. We know so much about health disparities, and we have known about healthcare disparities forever. But the COVID health disparities, combined with the Black Lives Matter movement and the youth who really pushed this issue, have kind of woken up a lot of our people in our institutions to make active changes. Medical schools around the country and medical institutions around the country are now more actively wrestling with this issue of inequities. How do we manage it? How do we change this situation? And there's so many brilliant solutions that are coming to the fore and that are being enacted.
Now, Yance, doesn't this start with conversation? I mean, you guys are going to be the conversation starter, but we, as viewers and as regular people, we've got to continue that conversation and get it into not only our schools, but in every event that we're doing.
Yeah, I think that the first conversation that you have to have is, one that says, hey, you know what? I might have a relationship with my doctor that looks like a great relationship. I get great care. My family gets great care. But you know what? I never actually thought about whether or not my friend at work or my neighbor down the street or my kid's teacher. Mm-hmm. I've never thought about the kind of health care that they receive. And so, like, the first conversation that we have to have is one that recognizes that not all of us are treated equally. And it's not one that I think, has to be a conversation about beating yourself up or feeling guilty about that, right? Because we're not talking about, pointing the finger at individuals. We're talking about recognizing the manner in which a system has operated over generations. Right, and so you're in a system that has been, like this for a very long time. Yeah. The first conversation is, wait a second, where do I fit in this system, and how can I make sure that everyone is getting treated the same way that I'm being treated?
And Doctor, don't you think that empathy plays a major role in this, and that it's time that we all start seeing each other for what is going on in our personal lives, and not just sit there and just have these false faces and things like that? We've got to have empathy for each other.
You're so right. Empathy is huge. And I think that healthcare providers, we go into this because we have empathy and compassion, and we want to help people. We want to relieve suffering, and all the nurses and EMTs and physicians, everybody, receptionists, everybody in the healthcare system is there because they care. However, because of the lack of resources, lack of staffing, the pressures mount. And in addition, if a community is consistently receiving fewer resources, it's hard for us to maintain empathy in that system. It's almost like the system is teaching us that some people's lives are less valuable than others. How do we maintain the empathy in that system? Mm-hmm. And that's the question that we're looking at and that we're trying to find solutions for, and that this film is putting in stark relief.
And the film we're talking about is The Color of Care. Yance, I can't stop right with the releasing or the viewing of this. I mean, there's got to be more from your creative space as well. I mean, will there be follow-ups? How can we keep this conversation moving forward and basically keeping people? Because the news media isn't really going to jump on this, or if they do, it's going to be on page 6.
Sure, of course. Well, the exciting thing about partnering with the Smithsonian Channel, I'm excited about it, Harpo Productions is excited about it, is the really incredible outreach and education campaign that Smithsonian has planned for this film, to bring the film into classrooms, to bring the film to community groups, to bring the film to medical schools, to bring the film to policymakers, to bring the film to people who actually have the power to begin to undo generations of systemic inequality. That's what's planned for this film. And, the broadcast on Sunday night will just be the first step in a really robust campaign that people are going to notice, that centers the film as our way into understanding how these inequities impact people on a personal level, and then motivate us to take specific action to try to undo these inequities.
Now, Doctor, doesn't that mean that you must remain the student too? You learn and then you teach and then you go back in and learn more?
That's it. That is it. You hit the nail right on the head. I've been a practicing provider for 30 years. I came up in this system, so I have to learn to do things differently. Yep. And that's one of the hardest things, actually, for my colleagues. But we're putting in place systems where we're spreading the students around so that they can teach us, because they have fresh eyes on a system that we have come to accept, and they don't accept it. They say, I need to be prepared to care for all people. And they're saying it repeatedly, and we have to listen. We are. What
did you learn, Yance, in the way that you got pretty up close and personal to this subject?
Sure. I learned a lot. I learned so much about the resiliency of people, even in the face of devastating tragedy. I learned so much about the power of sharing an individual story to help people understand a very complex issue. I also learned a lot about the history of health inequities in the United States that I did not know about, particularly the history of gynecology and in the United States, and also just really devastating statistics about Black maternal health and Black infant mortality. There are really things about systemic inequities in the United States that if you pay attention to them, they will stop you in your tracks, and they demand your attention, and that's what I hope the film will do.
Oh, my God, I cannot wait until the world sees this. You guys have got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you, Ara.
Thank you so much.
You bet. You be brilliant today, you two.
Likewise.